Everyone, people are always asking us, what do we use to record our meetings, take notes during those meetings? And honestly, we tell everyone about Grain. That's why I'm so excited to actually have them as our first sponsor for the Smart Tech Spotlight. We're very excited. If you haven't tried Grain yet, you're seriously missing out. It is a tool that we rely on for capturing, transcribing, and sharing key moments from all of our meetings. We can send it to clients, we can send it to Slack, we can send it into HubSpot. Makes it really, really simple. The AI transcription is very spot on and works seamlessly with Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom. So no matter what platform you're using, Grain just makes it simple. Plus, you can connect all the platforms that you're using for a seamless integration. And here's the best part. Because Grain is such a game changer, they're offering us 10% off to our listeners if you use the code SMART at checkout. So thank you again, Grain, for being one of our first sponsors. And thank you, everybody, for checking them out. Grain is fantastic. Again, you can use the code SMART at checkout and save 10% off your subscription with Grain. Welcome, everyone, to the Smart Tech Spotlight. This show, we are going to share inspiring stories, expert advice, and practical tips to help you thrive in everyday life. In today's episode, we actually have something a little bit different, which is exciting. We're diving into the world of financial literacy and empowerment with a special guest, Dwight Dillion, who is a seasoned financial professional and entrepreneur who owns a financial planning agency dedicated to helping individuals and families achieve financial freedom. So Dwight is actually very passionate about equipping people with these tools to make sure that you're able to be budget friendly, save efficiently, and prepare for both the unexpected and unexpected. From building emergency funds to planning for retirement, he is actually here to help share valuable insights to help you take control of your financial future. Whether you want to get started in your financial journey or looking to refine your strategies, this conversation is packed with actionable advice that you'll be able to make a real difference in your life. Ironically enough, I've actually known Dwight since high school, and we reconnected not too long ago now. And we're able to kind of dig into what each other does for business. And it was really enjoyable to understand, kind of some of the ways that separately we've gone in our lives, and we've done different things that have allowed us to kind of get to where we're at. And I definitely wanted to bring him on as a special guest. So yeah, Dwight, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Brian. Happy to be here.
Good to see you, man.
Likewise.
So talk to us a little bit about what you guys do, how you guys help people. I know I introduced it a little bit, but I want to make sure to give people kind of from the horse's mouth to a point.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. So we really want people to be financially literate. It amazes me, especially people who you'd think are well off, and I hear this all the time. Oh, they're good, right? Like, they make good money, doctors, lawyers, whatever it is, they've got things going on. They actually might be in worse shape because they bring in money, but they might be a big mess. So what we do is we sit down with people and we talk to them about their goals and dreams, and we put a financial plan together for them based on that, and we take an inventory on just what they have going on, their savings, their goals, everything in their financial portfolio, all the way down to their debt and insurances, and just making sure that, first of all, they know what they have going on. And then from that plan, and this is the part that's very, very unique to us, is we show them their financial independence number. Okay. So this is the amount of money that most people, they want to retire, or whatever their version of retirement is. The way that I like to describe it is, and I ask people, at what age would you like to stop working if you wanted to, right? Your earning years, so to speak, and have a certain consistent income coming in every single month that you'll never outlive, and that's always going to be there, right? And if one day you want to just wake up and do whatever you want, that steady stream of income is just coming in. And what's that bulk sum of money that you need for the rest of your life that you have pre-planned with our help, so you never have to worry about money and working again? Because the last thing that I want is for our future clients to become Walmart readers. That means that I failed them, right? So we give people that clarity, and most people don't have that clarity. And so from that plan, from that clarity, then we offer recommendations. And sometimes, we got to help people change some habits. Otherwise, other times it's just, hey, this is how much is needed. And we go from there.
Now, when you say the Walmart greeter, I think it's interesting. how that kind of comes across, right? Because like there's nothing wrong with someone being a Walmart greeter, but I think what
Not at
you're
all.
talking about for context is that there's been a rising trend of retired people having to come out of retirement because they didn't save enough, and that
That's right.
extra money that they are getting from taking up a small part-time job at Walmart as a greeter is kind of helping them get through the bills. Or another thing we've seen a lot is people who they're having to sell their home because
Hmm.
in order to go to elderly care, it costs a ton of
Yes.
money. Or say they come down with a medical need, and now all of a sudden they don't have an emergency fund, or the medical need consumes the emergency fund, and now they have to come out of retirement. So I think, for context, I think that's one of the biggest trends I can relate to with that, is we're seeing that way more often than we ever should. And I have personal experiences with family members where I'm just like, how did you guys not plan for this? You've
Yeah.
had 30 years to plan. What, and it's not meant in a derogatory way at all, but it's like,
Mm-mm.
how could you have better understood how the decisions you're making today impact your future? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just a lack of planning. That's what it is. And sometimes it's also people don't know what they don't know,
Yep,
right? You know,
totally.
there's all these very, very important parts of the financial conversation. So, you know, whoever's listening to this, especially if you work with a financial professional currently, right? I recommend asking them some questions about what things they can offer, like long-term care, like wills and trusts. I mean, so many famous people, and even people in my family, right? If one of the, let's say, spouses, or even younger than that, needed, they couldn't feed themselves or clothe themselves, they couldn't like take care of the basic you know behaviors of daily life, right? And they have to go into, let's say, a long-term care facility for, 6 to 12 months. That can be a huge financial burden on the family that they just didn't pre-plan for. Or,
Yeah,
some famous people who, they had this massive estate, but they didn't actually create an estate plan for themselves. All of a sudden, when they pass away, some cousins are calling that they never even knew were around, saying, "Hey," and then the state can take over and it can be a real mess. So, that's why that pre-planning, and these are often conversations that are uncomfortable to have.
yeah.
And that's where we come in, and we just want to bring that awareness and like educate yourself and make sure that you're getting education from a financial professional, somebody who's licensed, and not from a TikTok influencer, because they usually don't know what they're talking about.
So with that being said, like, help me understand. So, like, as an example, and help my listeners understand. So I have a 401k through my work, and we have a CPA that we work with, right? And I have my 401k, and I also have obviously Social Security. But like, I can't tell you a single time when that work, given CPA has sat me down and said, "Hey, what's your budget?" Or, "Hey,
Yeah.
are you trying to plan for a wedding?" Or, "Hey, are you trying to plan for retirement?" Like, not just retirement, but like actual, like, what your lifestyle is going to look like. Or, "Hey, have you considered what's going to be if you don't have a will?" Those kind of things. Like, I've never had that conversation with my CPA, or my accountant, for that matter. I mean, I have an accountant as a business owner, and my accountant's not going to have that conversation with me. So I guess help me understand. Like, I have all these financial professionals that I work with. I have my
Yeah.
banker that does my business banking for me. I got
Mhm.
my CPA, and I got my controller, my business broker. Right. I've
Mhm.
never had that conversation with any of them. So help me
Yeah.
understand, as a financial professional, how do you differ from those three positions that I've already talked about that really aren't providing this kind of level of service?
Yeah, because that financial plan that we put together for people covers all those bases. It's very, very common for me to talk to a business owner who has all these different financial professionals that you just said, except none of them will give you your financial independence number, and they really won't give you a complete picture. Now, from that complete picture that we put together for people, I'm not going to have every solution, but I'm
Right.
going to be able to say, have you had this conversation? Is this important to you? Have you had this conversation? Is this important to you? Like, I don't give tax advice. That's for a CPA. And
Right.
especially if somebody has a lot of moving parts, I'm like, go to your CPA and get this figured out, right? Um, and so I love the financial plan that we put together because it reveals everything. It's a very just holistic approach that honestly I haven't seen anywhere in the industry, like nowhere in fact. And that's one of I think our greatest strengths is that maybe we don't have all the solutions on our platform, but we're starting those conversations with people, and most importantly, we're giving people that clarity on by age 65, you need, and honestly, for most people, it's like $2 to $4 million. Just, right? People
Yeah.
want like between five and $10,000 a month. That's like the common thing, right? So from that, we have software that reverse engineers exactly how much people need to save every single month at what rate of return so they can reach that $2 or $4 million bulk sum at that age.
2 to 4 million. Like that's crazy. Like I can tell you, I am currently on track for 1 million, and that's with just 401k.
Yeah.
But that's been investing fairly aggressively through my work, right? And that's
Hmm.
been investing consistently for a number of years with 401k matching and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the 2 to 4 million, it seems like a very interesting number. Like how are you typically how are you typically working with people to like what is it they usually kind of are projected at if you can have an average, and then what little things are you doing to help them kind of restate what that looks like? I mean, you don't have to go into super detail. I know for compliance
Yeah.
there's a lot of things you guys
Yeah.
can't say because it's all specific, right? But if there's anything general you can kind of talk about, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. So generally speaking, it's first of all looking at their saving and spending habits and what they've already have saved, right?
Yep.
So, if let's say if they're already savers and they've already, let's say, maybe they have a 401k or maybe, they have an IRA or maybe they even have some cash accumulation life insurance, right? Um, Making sure that they're taking advantage of the max amounts that they can put into those different vehicles, right? Like with a 401k, okay, if you are getting a match, put up to that match. After that, you're playing in the market, and that's up to you. But I'm never going to tell somebody no, don't do that unless they specifically tell me I don't like risks. Well, then don't put any of your money in risk, right?
Yeah.
But that 401k match, that's free money. Yeah, go ahead, right? If they have a Roth IRA, okay, max that out up to, it changes every single year. It's, between like 5 and 6 thousand, I think, $6,500 a year, right?
And that's
Um,
the
and
pre-tax, right?
um,
Or
that's
post-tax?
post-tax, yeah.
Okay.
And then, one of, and then if if usually like they have a family, kids, they own a home and things like that, and protecting their family against any unforeseen circumstances, right? And they want to,
Yep.
they need some life insurance, then make sure you got that too. And you can use life insurance also as a way of building an asset as well, without getting into too much detail on that. And so all those components are a part of it, and it's like how big of a priority is saving long term, while at the same time making sure that like just the daily joys of yeah, go out to eat and and this and that, but like um I my wife and I, we really, really practice delayed gratification. We are in a season of our life intentionally where we are living very, very lean. And that's probably not going to change for a while,
Yeah.
and we also measure, like we keep track of as much as possible. We have clarity on where things are going. Most families, they don't take the time to have those money conversations of where are things going, and you'd be surprised how
Oh
many
yeah.
holes in your bucket, especially eating out. The holiday, is here. People are spending a lot of money on things that they
Credit
usually
card
don't.
usage goes up like crazy during the holidays.
Yes, exactly.
People
Like
finance the joy that they feel like they are having to
yeah.
give to their families.
I can't tell you how many people I've been talking to who I am saying, you know what, we want people to have a cash Christmas, not a credit card Christmas, right?
Dude, seriously.
Um, yeah, so all those things, and then oftentimes too, it's an income thing. They just need to make more money. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, go find a vehicle out there other than your job or find a way of making more money. Maybe that's just the biggest thing. Everything else are taken good care of. And
Yep.
then, making recommendations about that.
No, you're 100% correct on that. I would say like, and I relate with that pretty heavily too, because growing up in my early 20s and 30s, I was working two jobs. I was working as a mortgage broker. I was working also at the same time at not Robinhood, over at Roundtable.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was a quote from Bill Gates that was like, if you need to work a second job to be debt free, there's no shame in that. Like,
None.
there's never shame in working an extra job to make sure that you can pay off your debt. Because the fact of the matter is, like, I love this quote: if you're paying interest, you're not earning interest.
Hmm.
For every dollar you are spending in interest on a credit card, that's $2 to $7 you could be making back in interest,
Yeah.
depending on what you're investing in. And it's funny because a lot of people are cash, they might put money in, like, cash aside for bonuses or whatever, but they don't
Hmm.
realize there's actually savings accounts that have a high yield interest.
Yeah.
Vanguard is a really great one. I actually talked to my financial planner about that, and I said, hey, I have a little bit of money left over from the honeymoon that we had a while back, or from the wedding or whatever, and I don't want to have just cash sitting around. Like, what do I do with it? It's safe, it's low risk, but I want to have it
Hmm.
somewhere where I can at least be making a little bit of money on it. And he's like, yeah, Vanguard is a fantastic place. It's very, very low risk. It's a 5 to 7%. And actually, recently I signed up for Robinhood Gold.
Hmm.
Robinhood Gold is now offering a 7% cash balance interest.
There you go.
Crazy. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of really interesting things there. And I would say, like, a lot of people may or may not know this, but I actually worked as a car salesman in my early 20s. I was one of the youngest car salesmen that ever started in the industry at that dealership.
Yeah.
And I was like 20 years old. And what was interesting about it growing up is I didn't know about credit. Right. And
Mm.
they don't teach you about credit in high school, and they don't teach you about credit really even in college, unless you're getting into like a master's of business where they teach you how to leverage credit for your business. But outside
Yeah.
of that, like, for personal financial literacy, like, I would feel like I was doing the world a disservice to have a conversation about financial literacy and not talk about credit, because it is
Yeah.
such a uniquely American thing, right? And but it's also a uniquely American thing that you have to understand, right? So one
Yeah.
of the best, I'd say, this is my main tip for anybody, and I'm shocked at how people don't know this. Credit Karma, as an app, allows you to download at whatever your details are, get your credit score, and then keep track of not only your credit score, but your debt to income ratio, your credit to payoff ratio, like your balance to payoff ratio. It's incredible.
Hmm.
Everybody who doesn't have the Credit Karma app, you need to go download it today and take a look at what your credit actually looks like, because you don't
Very good
understand
tool.
what the opportunities are. You don't
Hmm.
understand where your opportunities for growth are, what you need to do in order to make sure you're maximizing it. Really, really cool. This is not a sponsored podcast, by the way. We are not getting paid by Credit Karma, but it is a fantastic tool that everybody needs. And growing up, in the business finances and industry of doing loans and such as a youngster, I had to disapprove and send people out of my car lot because they had 500 credit scores. They have 4 cars repossessed, and they come in thinking
Yeah.
they can qualify for a loan. And I'm like, listen, man, the bank doesn't trust you with a slice of bread. Like,
Yeah.
you have to build up, your repayment history for the bank to give you any sort of balance, essentially. But like,
Yeah.
that brings me, like, that's my, like, I'm not a financial planner, I'm just a guy, right? But I've also been through a lot of different situations where I've had to learn the hard way, right? I wasn't a silver spoon, kind of guy. We went to high school together. We didn't have the fancy high school that was paid for by
Nope.
grants or trusts. We went
Right.
to a public university, right, or public school. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where when you grow up in the ditches, sometimes you're going to figure out ways to crawl out, right?
Hmm.
And through doing so, you learn those life lessons. For me, Credit Karma, checking your credit often. And then also another one is checking your Social Security payments often to understand if
Hmm.
you actually have enough quarters to qualify. And I'll get into that more in a second. That's one of my financial literacy kind of lessons that I have been wanting to talk about for a while. But I do want to
Hmm.
ask you, in your
Yeah.
experience, what is kind of like the most important thing that you can tell anybody? Like, what is the most important thing, like a truth bomb that you could tell people that, like, if you're not paying attention to this one thing for financial literacy, like, you need to do that tomorrow and it'll have an immediate impact on your life?
Live within your means.
What do you mean by that though? Like, help the
Yeah,
layman person understand, like, what does that actually mean
yeah,
for someone?
yeah.
Because they always joke about, like, millennials, can't afford a house because they invest too much money in avocado toast. Not necessarily the case, right? But to help the people understand, like, what does it actually mean to live within your means?
Yeah. So the United States is known as the biggest spenders in the world because of, it's called retail therapy, right? Like we love spending money. And instead, I would challenge people to build a savings habit, right? Um, Fall in love with saving more than with spending. And it's a discipline, and that requires just delayed gratification. If you get an extra 50 or $100, save it, right? Like
Oh,
do like oh,
hold on, I got a fire going on. One sec.
sure.
All right, sorry, I had a little delay there for a second. Had a false alarm. My house thought it was on fire. My wife just blew out a candle, and so my fire alarm went crazy. But we're back. We were talking about being a super saver and seeing joy in saving money, which is such a hard conversation to have sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the advice that I'm giving, by the way, comes from, my business coaches who basically they have this habit where the moment that they get some income, it's tithe 10%, save 10%, and then everything else go ahead and, like they have like a whole like tiered structure to it. And the discipline is and there's also like an energetic psychology around this. Like people have a relationship with money. Most people think that there's not enough money to go around, and
Yep.
they're addicted to spending, right?
Yeah.
And and so um, one of the things that I'm constantly reminding our clients of is if you want more money to come in, if you want, just like because money's got a certain energy to it, be a financial river. And this is very uncomfortable for people who aren't used to giving or tithing or whatever it is and saving first, right? It's like, so if you're not accustomed to that, put that stuff on autopilot, right? And then track your spending, which again, like I'll be the first one to say, tracking my spending is something that I did not want to do. But when you have that kind of clarity, right, going back to the clarity as a big thing, you will
Yep.
start to see, oh my gosh, how much money am I spending on DoorDash? How much money am I spending on this or on that, on things that you really don't need? And honestly, like you'll be surprised how much money you don't need to spend when you are really intentional about being very, very lean. And by the way, like
Yep.
I work out 6 days a week. I need a lot of protein. Okay.
Welcome to Swole,
So
buddy.
thanks, man. So I need to eat a lot of food,
Yep.
right? And I'm very intentional. I have figured out what is the least amount of money I can spend on the most amount of protein. And I have a very boring diet. Now, this is, for people, right? But so just being intentional about where your money is going, where are the leaks in your boat, and developing those habits of placing your future savings first, also tithing as well, or, however you want to do it. So you build the habits of a saver and build the habits of thinking long term rather
Yep.
than paycheck to paycheck. And even if people are paycheck to paycheck, they can still start saving $20 a month in a high yield savings account. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got is don't put that savings in your savings account. Put it in a different account other than your bank savings. So it's just a little bit out of reach.
Yep.
And that way, because when there's a real emergency, you can get it. But otherwise, you're going to be
Yep.
tempted to spend that $20 on a movie.
So one of the best things I ever learned about finances, um, And I've been on a financial independent journey, a financial literacy journey for many years. And one of the best things I've ever done was learn to segment my money
Mm.
and learn the power of direct deposit into accounts that aren't your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example of this, my wife and I used to work in downtown Portland, and we had many situations where we go to lunch and her credit card kept getting skimmed. And we're like, why is this
Wow.
happening? Well, wherever we were going, they kept skimming her card.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we separated it out so that we have one account specifically for food budget.
Mm-hmm.
That is, for me, this is my way of doing it. I have a Credit Karma account. So Credit Karma is what I use for my financial, my credit monitoring. I also use it for, like, if there's different interest rates I can get, different credit cards I can get, there's benefits there. But I have a separate account through their financial system, their money system, where I have a specific amount I deposit in there every single pay period that is just for food budget. And I have a separate
Love
card
it.
just for food budget. That's it.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's the budget in that card, right? And if that card ever got hacked, the only thing it would ever get is our food budget. And
Yeah,
so,
I
yeah,
love
we
it.
may not have our food budget for that month. We may have to, figure out, what to do or whatever. But that's as much as they could take, right?
Love it.
We also made it to where we have a separate account for bill pay, but we don't actually use that account for bill pay. We use a credit card that has air miles, and everything we can put on the credit
Mm.
card with air miles, and we make sure that card is ideally, especially set aside for only bill pay. So bill
Mm-hmm.
pay goes onto that credit card, and then we pay it off with that bill pay account that is tied to no other credit card. That bill
Love
pay
it.
account does not have a link to a deposit. You can't go to the ATM and get money out of there,
Yeah.
right? You can deposit money to pay off the credit card, but that's it. And then we have a separate account for savings that's completely different. We have a separate account for our high yield savings through Vanguard. And then we have 3 or 4 different crypto accounts that we
Mm.
have different financial, savings and investments in. So we definitely are kind of like squirrels in that we put our money in a bunch of different trees and not
Yeah.
enough in one tree to where if that tree got, cannibalized or hacked, or whatever, we would lose everything. Right. And too many people have all their paycheck in one account. And my dad, actually, I taught him this. He was moving to Nevada, and I taught him the idea of squirreling away your money in different segmented accounts and using direct deposit as a way not to think about it. Like, how much your bills are. Just put that money in your bill pay account. You never have to think about it.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
And then we have an account that's our basically our fund money. And that fund money goes right into, if I have to pay a surprise bill that comes up. But my wife and I got rid of our Mercedes. We moved to Nevada about 4 years ago, and we had a lease that was ending. We don't buy vehicles often. We typically will lease because we want to make sure that we're not seeing depreciation in our assets. And
Mm.
so what we did is, as soon as our lease was out, we realized, like, we don't need a second car. It's fun, it's kind of feels good to have a second car. But we took that money, which was like $400 a month for the Mercedes lease. It wasn't that bad. It was actually really reasonable. Um, that money still kept going into our bill pay, but I would segment that into its own account. And that money is actually what we are using to either save up for a trip, because we do a lot of trips each year, or depending on the goal, that's going towards an investment fund, right? So, like, we still spend that money. We just diverted it from our car payment to
Right.
a travel fund, or to a second home fund, or to an investment property fund, right? So it's like realizing that we didn't need a second car has been super liberating, right?
Love
And every
it.
once in a while I get to use an Uber, or every once in a while I have a friend come pick me up. It isn't the
Yeah.
end of the world, right? But it's really interesting how you can micro segment your financials to really kind of make sure that you have a very clear picture. Because I think one of the biggest things you talked about there that I can relate with is visibility. People don't like to track their funding, their spending, but one of the reasons you track it is so you can have visibility into it. Well, if you segment and you squirrel away into separate accounts, you don't have to track it as much because you've already pre-spent it. I have this much money going into savings. I have this much money going into bill pay, this much money going into food. I know if I spend more than that on food, I'm over budget.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. You got some great habits, man.
Thank
That's
you.
that's awesome.
It took a lot to learn. It's been I would say probably close to 12 years of really, like, diligently trying to reestablish my relationship with money.
Yeah, I bet.
Takes a while.
Yeah, it
Takes a
does.
lot of disability, not disability. Takes a lot of discipline. Is what I'm trying to say.
Discipline. That's the word.
Yep.
That's the word.
Cool, man. So we got 5 minutes.
Yep.
What do you feel like you want the people to understand about their position in 2025? Like, what's the future look like? Not just for you, but like, what are you teaching your clients and your students for how to approach 2025?
Have clarity, right? So just, and I would say go into like, make sure that this podcast is not just TV, like actually take some action. So if there's one thing that you can do in the next 24 hours, it is get start getting clarity because this might not happen in one conversation, right? Get
Yep.
together with your spouse, or if you're single, by yourself or somebody who you know is good with money, and just get a baseline of what's going in, what's going out. Actually establish a budget for yourself. Just get clarity on that first before the new year starts.
Yeah.
And then again, do all this before the new year starts. Give yourself a savings goal, like a tangible by December 31st, 2025, I will have this much saved, right? Whether it's, and if you're just starting out, this much saved in my bank account. If you're a little bit more advanced, look at all of your accounts and go, how much do we want saved in all of our accounts,
Yep.
right? And then very intentionally start plotting out, okay, what are we going to save each month in these various accounts? So
Yep.
that way, by January 1st, instead of starting January 1st, by January 1st, you know where that money is allocated. And if you're in that spot where you're like, actually, I need to make more money, then go and start looking at different ways of making more money so that you can hit those goals. Like the thing that I'm most excited about right now, that my wife and I have already started to do, is getting complete clarity on how big our agency is going to get, how much
Yep.
savings we're going to have. Like we got big goals. Like we want to start having a family, which is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, man.
And so reverse engineering what that's going to look like and getting complete and total clarity on that before the 1st of January. So please do me a favor, right? Within 24 hours, start getting together or start it on your own and start putting together a plan that you finish before New Year's Eve when you go out partying. So you wake up January 1st with clarity, and
Yep.
you will be so far ahead of so many people that you know, and you're going to have a whole new outlook on January 1st. It's like setting up your clothes, the night before, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going,
Good
oh, what are
plan.
we going to do? Start, and then boom, January 1st, you can go on it hard. That's what I would recommend.
I love that, man. So one thing you brought up that I think actually teeters really well into a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. So you mentioned the idea of what if you don't have enough money to really save right now, you need to get another job, right? A lot of people that we have met that we work with, and again, this is a B2B, business to business podcast, right? So we work with a lot of contractors, a lot of business owners, and we have a lot of business owners we work with who are doing Uber, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are running their business and they're running the business on the side. They're burning the candles at both ends, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I think is a really interesting topic, and I'm actually gonna put a screenshot probably on the screen here during post so you guys can see this. But a lot of people don't realize as an independent contractor, you need to make sure you're checking your social security account. So if you go to, I'm going to do a Google search quick, make sure I have the right social security administration. Yeah. So if you guys go to www. I think it's actually here. I'm going to share my screen so we can actually see it. I'm not going to log in, but for users, I think we'll find this valuable. So this may sound like a weird topic, right? But it's super valuable and super important. I don't think enough people understand. Most Uber drivers, most independent contractors I've talked to don't understand this part. So I cannot highly recommend this enough. Go to the socialsecurity.gov and go to plan for retirement and then click sign in or create an account. What is this going to do for you? Well, this is going to tell you if you have worked enough hours in your professional career in a position that pays into retirement. because independent contractor work does not pay into Social Security. And you have to have at least 10 years of full-time working quarters. They're called a quarter, essentially. And if you don't have that minimum, you will not be able to qualify for your Social Security. Now, I can tell you for me personally, when I log in here, I get a specific amount that tells me how much I'm going to make when I retire based on the current funding that I have invested. Now, why do I bring this up? Like, why do I bring up Social Security? A lot of people I've talked to don't understand how to look at the future and try to save. If you don't understand what you're already kind of working towards as a goal for Social Security, you're not going to understand what the possibility is there, right? And I can tell you from a point of recognizing why this is important. So my mother, a lot of people don't know this about me. I don't share this too often, so this is kind of a personal story. My mother passed away right before Dwight and I met. I was only 13 years old. It was 97. And my mother passed away at the age of 44. She was really young. My mom was an entrepreneur. The entire time I was young, I remember her working as business owner of an antique shop. She worked as a contractor for an antique broker. She was in the antique business for all the years that I remember her. And I was only 13. So that's all, only 13 years. But when she passed, my father was unable to get Social Security to help him take care of me. And the reason why is because she did not work enough quarters at a job that paid into Social Security for her to qualify for Social Security. This is such an important topic that nobody talks about. My brother is a business owner, right? Thankfully, he has looked at his quarters and he has recognized what his quarters need to be. But I can tell you, there are certain situations where people check their quarters and they're getting ready to retire and they still have a couple of years of work to log those hours before they actually realize they can work. So, as a business owner, a lot of business owners have started out from being a business owner, right? And they've not worked a job where they're paying themselves Social Security, or as a business owner, they're not paying themselves Social Security. And it's so important. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, Social Security is not going to be there. I think that is absolute just fodder. Social Security is an entitlement you've been paying into for all these years. The government has more than enough money to pass a bill to fund it after they've already borrowed from it, right? Social Security, if we protect it, will be there when we need it. But if you don't know what it is, you're not going to care. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just expecting that Social Security is this magical thing, you're not going to care. So if you're an Uber driver, if you're a business owner, if you're trying to understand, do yourself a favor, log into the Social Security Administration's website, create an account, register your information. It'll already have your Social Security. It's the government. They will know what it is that you already have paid into it. And do not work a consulting job or a business owner job without checking your quarters to make sure that you at least have the minimum to qualify for what you are entitled to. It is so important. And I can tell you, as someone who has family members that are disabled, disability comes out of your Social Security. Disability is part of your Social Security. If you don't pay into it, the payment you get from disability will not be enough to cover your nut. And I've seen this firsthand, and it is devastating. When you talk about planning for a family member who didn't plan well enough, I have seen that firsthand. Mm-hmm. Right? There's nothing more debilitating than being a responsible person who's doing their thing and then having a family member come to them saying, hey, I just filed for Social Security, or I just filed for disability, and now I can't pay my mortgage. What do I do? Mm-hmm. So this is a really awkward topic because people don't talk about it. But if you don't talk about it, it's going to continue to be an awkward topic. Your Social Security is for you. Please try to be mindful that it is for you and that you should be getting it when you retire, how much you're getting, how much you're on track for, when you can get it, how little you'll get if you pull early, and what the proper amount is if you pull on time. So anyway, that is kind of, for me, like the number one financial lesson I can impart upon people after, taking this financial journey of my own and, being a business owner myself, recognizing the needs of, the many. But yeah, so do you have any thoughts on that? Like, have you experienced that with anybody else as far as like having a situation where their family doesn't have that planning, or someone else is not, as a business owner, they're not really thinking about that? Have you ever experienced anything like that, right?
Well, they just don't think about it, right? And so that's if because they don't think about it and because they don't have that conversation, they depending on like where they're at in their financial journey, it can
Yeah.
either really impact them, or they're just like and they and it doesn't bother them maybe because they're making millions of dollars, right?
Right.
So but it's something that like hey like it's it's there. I guess it's just like a priority kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So most of the business owners that I know completely like ignore the government other than paying their taxes to the IRS,
Well, yeah.
right? So, but for for like this, for the smaller business owners, like yeah, cover all your bases, right? Like you just taught me something about that, so thank you so much because
Yeah, you're welcome.
it's not a typical part of my world. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say now I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna look into this.
Yeah. I would highly recommend making it a priority, just because it is an important thing in everybody's life.
Yeah,
I think one of my favorite quotes is, "Money is a fickle mistress. If you do not pay attention to her, she will leave you."
absolutely. That's right. Great advice.
Yeah, buddy. Well, this has been great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank you,
teaching
Brian.
the people. This is a bit of a different episode today. Usually we talk to business owners and about their products and their services. This is a little different because the goal is to get a lesson, from this and understand how you could be more financially free in the new year. And Dwight, thank you for coming on and helping to educate people and give them some just common sense advice.
My pleasure, Brian. Pleasure to
Appreciate
be
it.
here.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and get stopping, and thank you everyone for your time.